Hi guys, so we are going to go over the last type of conic section for this unit. So it's over parabolas, and I know that we have already talked about parabolas, but it's going to be a little bit different because it's going to kind of follow like the equation that we learn when we're talking about conics. So it's going to look a little bit different than what we have learned in the past. So today we're going to start off just with parabolas that are centered at the origin, look at the equations, and look through some vocab and stuff. So the definition of a parabola, it's the set of all points in a plane that are equidistant from a fixed point and a fixed line. That fixed point that we're going to be using is called the focus again, and then this is new for parabolas. The fixed line that we talk about is called the directrix. So you can see by the picture, if you take any point on this parabola, so they're using this point xy right here, and you find your distance to the focus, which is here, and then if you drop down to the directrix, make a right angle there, those two distances, d1 and d2, are always going to be the same. And then we're going to also use this value of p a lot. P is the distance from the vertex, or sometimes we call it the center, to the focus. So this distance right here is p. We also use that distance because that's a distance from the vertex to the directrix, which again is this dotted line right here. Okay, so that's also going to be that same distance. Okay, so again, we're going to start with just parabolas centered at the origin, 0, 0. So I'm going to go through and I want you to copy this down in your notes. So first we'll start with the equation. Okay, the equation, again centered at 0, 0, is x squared equals 4py. Okay. So for this, the vertex or the center is going to be at the origin. The focus, again, we use that value of p. So the focus here is going to be at 0p. So for vertical parabolas, these are the ones that are going to open up or down. Okay, so if you see x squared, that's opening up or down. I'll go ahead and graph them in a second. Let me just fill out the rest of this. The directrix, so the equation of that line, is going to be y equals negative p. And then the last thing you need is the axis of symmetry. They ask about this at the beginning and then they kind of drop it. Axis of symmetry for vertical parabolas, again centered at the origin, is going to be the y-axis. Okay, so you can tell whether the parabola is going to open up or down based on the value of p. If p is positive, then it's going to open up. Okay, and so you're going to have your parabola that opens up like this. The focus is right here. Again, that's at the point 0p. And then whatever that distance is from the vertex to the focus, you're going to go that same distance the opposite direction and then draw in the directrix. So this would be the equation, right? Y equals negative p, because you're going the opposite direction there. Okay. It's similar if it opens down, everything is just like negative. So if p is less than 0, p is negative, that tells you that the parabola is going to open down. So it's going to look something like that. Now this time the focus will be down here. The focus is always inside the parabola, okay? But this is still going to be at 0p because remember p is negative at this point, so you would go down. Again, you use that same distance, whatever it is, go the opposite direction that same amount, and then you draw in your directrix, which again, this is the equation y equals negative p. Okay. Again, x squared tells us that this is going to be opening up or down. So then the other type of parabola we have is a horizontal parabola. These are going to be opening either left or right. So the equation, it just flips. So it's going to be y squared this time equals 4px. Okay, so everything's going to be a little bit backwards here. Now the focus is going to be at P0. The directrix, so before it was y equals, right, because it was a horizontal line. Now it's going to be x equals a number, and it's going to be negative p. And then your axis of symmetry, which I didn't really talk about on the last one. I'll go over it here. It's going to be the x-axis. That's just going to be the line that cuts through the center of your parabola. Okay. So thought process is the same here. If p is positive, now before it opened up, this time it's going to open to the right. So centered at the origin here, it's going to be opening to the right. So then the focus will be over here at P0. Again, that whatever that distance is, you're going to go to the left the same amount, draw in the directrix, which is the equation. This time it's x equals negative p. And then I'll go ahead and show it on this one. The axis of symmetry is going to be the x-axis here. It's the line that cuts through the vertex and the focus, right? It cuts the parabola right in half. Okay. Normally we don't draw that in or anything, but sometimes they'll ask for it. Okay, so going back down here, this one is going to open left. We can tell it opens left because p is going to be less than 0. So vertex is at 0, 0. It's going to open to the left. Okay, focus will be here, which is again at P0. Remember, P is negative in this situation, so it makes sense you're going to go left. And then that same amount, you go right to draw in the directrix. Equation is x equals negative p. Okay, so then for the practice problems, we're just going to be given some equations, and we need to be able to name the focus, directrix, and axis of symmetry. Also, they might give you the focus or the directrix, and we need to then be able to come up with the equation. Okay, so here's the first one. Give these three things. Here's our equation. X squared equals 40y. So first thing, because it's the x that's being squared, I know that this is going to be a vertical parabola. It's going to open up or down. And because this number here is positive, I know it's going to open up. Okay, so if you want to make note of that, you can. I find that it's pretty helpful to draw like a rough sketch, okay, just to make sure that you're finding these things correctly. So usually off to the side, I can just draw a rough sketch. I know it's centered at the origin here, and it's going to open up, so I can just draw what it's going to look like. Okay, so I know the focus is going to be about there, and my directrix has to be down here. So in order to find exactly where those are, I have to find the value of p. So I always use this little equation, 4p equals, and then it's whatever number is right here. Okay, so I divide. So that gives me p equals 10. All right, so when I'm naming these things, I need the focus, the directrix, the axis of symmetry. Now it's easier to name them because I have my drawing, so I can kind of see where my point and my line need to be. My focus is going to be going up 10 units from the vertex, so that's going to be at 0, 10. Okay, the directrix is going to be this dotted line down here. That's y equals negative 10. My axis of symmetry is the line that cuts through the parabola. Okay, in this case, it's the y-axis. All right. Next one, y equals negative 1/16 x squared. So I want to point out here that the part that's squared, we don't want the constant in front of that number. We want it attached to the other variable. So first thing I'm going to do is I want to get the x squared by itself, right? So I am actually going to multiply by both sides by negative 16 because that will cancel over here. So that gives me negative 16y equals x squared, or if you want to rewrite it, x squared equals negative 16y, then it kind of fits our pattern that we're used to. So it's going to be similar to the last one. The x is what's being squared, so it opens up or down. This number is actually negative, so that's going to tell me that this opens down. So I can kind of, again, draw my rough sketch here. Starts, vertex is at 0, 0. I know it's going to open down. So my focus will be up here, or down here, directrix up here. Okay, so then I need to solve for p in order to plug in my numbers. So remember, you use 4p equals, and in this case it's negative 16, so p equals negative 4. So then my focus is going to be at 0, negative 4. Directrix is going to be y equals positive 4. And then axis of symmetry is still going to be the y-axis. Okay. Part C, y squared equals negative 20x. So this time it's the y that's being squared. That tells me that it's going to open left or right. Because this is negative, it's going to open left. And again, I really just kind of think through that so that way I can draw my little picture over here. So I know the focus will be inside on the left, and then the directrix will be over here on the right side. Okay. So again, I need to find the value of p. I always do 4p equals. In this case, it's negative 20. So that gives me p equals negative 5. Okay, so over here in my picture, I would go left 5 units to draw in the focus, right 5 units to draw in the directrix. Okay, so then I know that the focus is going to be at the star, which would have to be at negative 5, 0. The directrix is going to be that dotted line, which is the equation x equals 5. Remember, if it's a vertical line, it's x equals. My axis of symmetry this time is going to be this line that cuts through the middle of the parabola, which is the x-axis. Okay, this one is similar to that one before where we had to get what's being squared by itself here. So I need to get the y squared by itself. So I'm going to go ahead and divide by negative 24 on both sides here. So when I rewrite this, I kind of want to write that as a number out in front. And then again, if I rewrite it so that the squared is on the left side, I'll have y squared equals negative 1/24 x. Okay. This one is going to be similar. It's going to open to the left as well because that number is negative, and I know it's the y's that are being squared, so that tells me opening left or right. The negative tells me opening left. So same type of thing as before. I have to solve for p, so 4p equals negative 1/24. Divide by 4. You can either do that in your calculator or you can do keep flip change. It's really negative 1/24 times 1/4. And so you get a value of negative 1/96. And I would just leave that as a fraction. Okay. So your focus then, so remember that's the distance that you're going left and right to graph your focus and your directrix. So the focus will be at negative 1/96, 0. Your directrix is the line x equals positive 1/96. And then our axis of symmetry is still going to be the x-axis. Okay. So then for these last two, it says to write an equation for each parabola with the vertex at the origin. So again, it really helps me to draw a picture just so that I see what's going on here. We know the vertex is at 0, 0. For this one, they tell us the focus is at negative 4, 0. Right? I know the parabola has to open around the focus, so I know that it has to open to the left. And that tells me that my equation, my basic setup, is y squared equals 4px. Okay? So then all I have to do is plug in the value of P. From the vertex to the focus, that is the value of P. Because I'm going negative, or I'm sorry, because I'm moving left, that tells me that P has to be negative, right? You can also use it from the focus. So we just need to plug that in. Y squared equals 4 times negative 4x. So y squared equals negative 16x. And last one here, the directrix is y equals negative 1/8. Again, we need to figure out the equation. So if I want to just draw in a rough sketch here, they tell us that the vertex is at 0, 0. Okay. They tell us that the directrix is the line y equals negative 1/8. Remember, if it's y equals, that's a horizontal line. So you go down 1/8. There's the directrix, which means the focus would need to be up here at positive 1/8. And then the parabola would need to open around that. So this parabola is going to open up. So right away, I know my equation is going to be x squared equals 4py. And then I just need to find the value of P. Remember, P is always the distance from the vertex to the focus. You're going up 1/8 units because you went down 1/8 to find the directrix. So in this case, P is going to be equal to positive 1/8. So that's what I need to plug in here. So then I can just simplify that fraction. That's 4/8, which is 1/2. So my final equation is x squared equals 1/2 y. All right. So here is the homework. It is from the book. The questions and the answers are on my website. Make sure that you're showing your work, though, okay? If you're just copying the questions and the answers and it's obvious you're not showing how you're finding the answers, you know, that's not the best, right? It's obvious that you're actually not doing the work. So just do your best to show your work, guys. That way I know that you're actually going through it. All right, thanks.